All right. We are ready. We're rolling here, Maddie. Yes?
We are rolling.
All right. So today's webinar, you want to pull it up for us?
Yep.
There you go. Top 6 financial myths versus reality. So I just started a little early because I just want to go over what do I mean by myths versus reality. So what I'm referring to is the concept that I talk to a lot of people. I know a lot about personal finance. And over, I hear people say things that aren't true, but they believe wholeheartedly they're true because things get mixed up. Things seem to be true because words in the financial services industry can be used over and over, and you just may not be able to put the whole thing together. So what I'm trying to do is take the top 6 that I've come across, and actually we could probably come up with about 50, but the top 6 that can be detrimental if you don't understand the reality, the truth of what the situation is. So we're going to kind of do this like Johnny Carson. Anybody who's old enough to remember Johnny Carson, he'd always started the one that was the least and then come down to the best one, right? So we're going to do the same. We're going to take one that's at the top that a lot of people probably know, but may not know. And then we're going to get to one that almost everyone gets wrong. Okay, so let's go. So long-term care is not a significant risk. A lot of people believe that long-term care, it can happen. And if it does, it can be a lot of money, but Medicare will pay something of it and so forth. These are all incorrect. Medicare does not pay any of long-term care. So let's go to that. If you have no plan for long-term care, the risk is significant. Matter of fact, long-term care agents will make this out to be the most scary thing that you will ever imagine. Yes, it is scary, but it can be managed. It can be managed properly. You just need to understand the truth about it. So let's go to that. So first off, Medicare at best will only pay. Now, here's where confusion comes in. Medicare, MEDICAR, care is for people over 65 years of age. Medicaid, MEDICAID, Medicaid is for people who are impoverished. Medicare only is going to pay for 90 days at best. And typically at the end of 20 to 30 days, they're going to say no more. You really have to have a unique situation to get the full 90 days. My own mother was in a rehab center. You got to go to the hospital first. You have to be in the hospital for 3 days. That in and of itself is becoming more and more difficult to actually be admitted to a hospital. I actually had a situation with my mother where she was in the hospital in a room and they said she was never admitted. I'd never heard of that. So you have to be admitted into a hospital for 3 days, transferred to a nursing home rehab facility, and they're only going to pay the next 20 days at the most. And then after that, they're going to start trying to get her out. You're going to have to appeal, or your whoever, yourself or whoever. So Medicare is 90 days at best. Medicaid will pay the whole thing, but then you got to go through that whole process of impoverishing yourself and so forth. Long-term care is custodial care. That means taking care of bathing, feeding, toileting, showering. Those types of custodial care is never covered under medical insurance. Number 3, 2 out of 3 people over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care. Now that's a scary statistic, 2/3 of people, but keep in mind that a large portion of that 2/3 will be covered under that Medicare 90 days, because a lot of people will go into a long-term care facility only because it's a hospice situation. They're probably going to pass away in the next week, 2, 3, 4 at the most, something of that sort. Hospice is covered, And it usually, not always, done in the home a lot now, but hospice is normally in a long-term care facility. So even though that's a scary number, it's a real number too that we have to think about. So let's make sure that we understand that it is a significant amount. The long-term care can cost 8 to 15,000 per month, depending on where you are. It could cost $8 to 15,000 a month. So, what we always say about long-term care is that it's a serious risk. You have to understand it. You have to plan it. You have to have a strategy as to how you're going to deal with long-term care. The number one thing to do is never do your long-term care planning with a long-term care insurance agent, because all they're going to do is try to scare you into buying long-term care insurance, which can be a solution for a lot of people, but it's not the end-all solution for everyone, like the long-term care agents want it to be. Medicaid will pay, but you have to figure out how to impoverish yourself. That's what elder care attorneys help you do, is to figure out how to be legally qualified for Medicaid. So it is a serious risk. Take it seriously. Don't believe Medicare, people over 65, is going to pay for it. Second one. There we go. Accidental death and dismemberment insurance is cheap. I hear this all the time. I've got $16 million worth of accidental death and dismemberment insurance. And it's like, this is a good thing, you know. Yeah, and it is cheap. You know, you could have $1 million of accidental death and dismemberment insurance, and you're paying, $1.50 a month or $5 a month or something like that. And they're thinking, wow, it's really cheap. Well, there's a direct correlation between something being cheap and the probability of ever collecting against it. And one of the problems with accidental death and dismemberment insurance is that lawyers write the policy. So let's go to the truth. Accidental death and dismemberment insurance is a morbid form of gambling. How do I say that? So, the concept is you're not looking for insurance to give you money under a unique situation. That's not the purpose of insurance. The purpose of insurance is to ensure if a risk happens, you'll have the money to not be financially devastated. Okay. So if I have a car accident and somebody sues me for $1 million, I have insurance to protect that I don't have to be impoverished by trying to pay the claim that the people have brought against me. Okay. If I die prematurely and I want my wife and my children to be financially solvent, I want life insurance to cover that. I don't care how I die. If I die in a sickness, if I die in an accident, if I die, whatever the case may be, I need insurance to cover that situation. And I don't want to try to figure out how it's going to cover it. Okay. So, when you're dealing with it as an accident, it's kind of a morbid form of gambling. So the payout is, the reason the premium is low is because the payout is extremely rare. Lawyers define what an accident is. Lawyers can claim that death was not an accident because of negligence. Okay. So if I'm driving along and I have an accident, but it was a negligent action on my part, the policy may have a provision in there that says, oh, it was your negligent act that caused the accident. Therefore, we don't cover negligent acts. It was suicide. We don't cover suicide. It was a medical condition. I have a heart attack, which causes my car to have an accident. And they say, well, I'm sorry, but it wasn't, or I have an accident. I go to the hospital. I'm in intensive care for 2 or 3 weeks, and I catch pneumonia and die from pneumonia, or I get MRSA and die from MRSA. And they say, well, the accident didn't kill you. It was the pneumonia or the MRSA or whatever. I mean, these are all kinds of ways that they can exclude themselves from the accidental death or the time frame. That's a big one in accidental death. Most accidental death policies say you have to die in a certain period of time from the supposed accident. And if you don't, some of them are as short as 48 hours. You don't die in 48 hours from that accident. It's not an accident according to that policy. Very rare payout. You need life insurance, not a gimmick that says, I die of an accident. Do not, if you want to spend money on accident, do it, as a fun thing, I guess. That's the best way I could say it. But if you're planning risk management around accidental death, that's ridiculous. And most young people think, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die of an accident. Well, 0.06% chance you're going to ever die of an accident between the ages of 25 and 34 years of age. 0.06%. That's 0.0006, that you're going to die of an accident. So anyway, let's go on to the next myth. My employer subsidizes my group life insurance, making it cost effective. The numbers are small because you're doing it in 26 pay periods, but it is not cheap in any way, shape, or form. Let's go to the reality. Most employers give free life insurance, like 1 times your salary, but group employer life insurance is rarely ever subsidized and expensive, since you are subsidizing coverage for unhealthy colleagues. Okay, so go ahead, bring up the next slide. So if the premium's same for all employees based on age and gender. So if you're a female, your life expectancy is better than males. You automatically are behind the 8 ball if you're buying group life insurance. If you're a non-smoker, non-smokers' premiums are always cheaper than a smoker. And if the company's group plan doesn't differentiate between smokers and non-smokers, you're subsidizing the smoker's premium. The person next to you has got chronic illnesses, is overweight, and for their height and so forth. You're paying for their premium if you're in relatively good shape. So group life insurance premiums also, every year your age turns divisible by 5, it takes a jump. Group of life insurance isn't portable. So, if you're working for a company, and even if you feel you're going to be with that company for a long while, what are you going to do if all of a sudden you have to leave that company, or you get a better offer and the company you're going to doesn't offer group life insurance? My company doesn't offer group life insurance because we know it's not advantageous to our employees to offer group life insurance. Group life insurance can normally be converted to a whole life policy, but at an absurd premium. Group life insurance, other than the free stuff, if your employer's giving you 1 times your salary for free, that's great. But there's no truth to the fact that group life insurance is cheap. Matter of fact, we have helped clients to leave group life insurance, buy a private policy that locks in the premium for 10, 20 years instead of just 5. And the premium is normally 50 to 80% cheaper if my client is relatively healthy. And I didn't say healthy as all get out. I meant relatively healthy. If they're a smoker, they have chronic illnesses, maybe group life insurance is the only option we really have. Not a great option, because if they leave and they lose the insurance, it's gone for good and they're not going to get any insurance. But the reason people feel that it's cheap is because when they get their paycheck, it only said they took $40 out. 40 bucks. What's 40 bucks out of my paycheck? I don't really care. It's 40 bucks. Well, multiply that by 26 and then go look at what a private policy would cost. And if you want to do a great, the website we use, quick reference, findmyinsurance.com, findmyinsurance.com, just give you a quick term quote for any length of time, any amount, et cetera, locking in the premium. You're going to find group life insurance is not cheap at all if you're relatively healthy. So we're down to number 3 on the list. My will determines where my assets will go. So people think, okay, I've written a will, I've done my estate planning. Well, let's go to the reality. The reality is the will is only the third criteria to determine where an asset goes. So let's look at this, okay? So titling is everything. When somebody dies, titling is everything. What do I mean by titling? Well, you know how you have a deed and it says Drew and Bev Tignanelli, joint tenants by the entirety. That's titling. Or if you have a brokerage account, it says John and Mary Doe, joint with rights of survivor. That's titling. Or if you have something that just says Drew Tignanelli, that's titling. Okay. What does that titling say? And that titling is going to determine everything. So let's give you an example. Drew and Bev Tignanelli, joint tenants with rights of entirety. What that means is the marital unit owns the asset. If any one of the marital partners passes away, the surviving partner owns the asset. So Drew and Bev go to write their will, right? They own this house, joint tenants with rights of entirety. They go write the will. After they write the will or talk to the lawyer and give them their instructions, Drew calls up the lawyer and says, hey, John, look, I love my wife dearly, but I want our kids to have my half of the house because I don't trust her. She was so tired of being married to me, and she's looking for somebody else by now, and she's gonna give that house, my half of the house, away to somebody else accidentally because she won't even know that she did it. And so I want my half of the house go directly to kids. So put it in my will that my half of the house goes to the kids. All right. Well, and then I die, you know what happens? My wife gets the house because joint tenants by the rights of entirety with rights of entirety is automatically hers. The marital unit owns it. The titling says that in my car. Joint tenants with rights of survivor. My wife gets the car. I could write paragraphs and paragraphs in my will. It has no impact whatsoever over titling. Beneficiary designation doesn't trump titling, but it trumps the will. Okay. And the Supreme Court just ruled on this. This was the case that they ruled on. And a guy and his wife were married, and he puts her down as the beneficiary in 1994. I'm sorry, 1989. 1994, they get divorced. 2007, he dies. The children walk in and say, we're here to collect dad's 401k plan. And the company says, well, there's a Mary Johnson here as the beneficiary. And they say, well, of course, that's our mother. And that's who dad would have put down when he was married to her. But here's the divorce decree. And she said, I don't want any rights to this 401k plan. They say, sorry, she's still the beneficiary. We're not going to do anything. We're turning it over to the courts. You fight it out in the courts. Whoever the courts tell us, that's who we're going to give it to. First court case comes up, the kids win. All right. Second court case, the mother appeals. Funny, the mother appeals. And the second court case, the mother wins. And then it goes to the Supreme Court of the United States. And the Supreme Court says, no, the mother wins because this is a legal contract. This is a beneficiary designation. It's a legal contract that usurps the will. I don't care if it's right or wrong. It's irrelevant. It is a contract that cannot be broken by your subjective opinion as to what dad wanted. You could show us all the evidence in the world. It's irrelevant. Dad needed to change the beneficiary designation, and mom won the case. Mom got the 401k. Make sure your beneficiary designations are correct and lined up in your will, or else they will go to the wrong people. It happens all the time. Now, I will say on that divorce case, lots of states have passed laws since the Supreme Court decision that says if there's a divorce, all previous beneficiary designations of the ex-spouse are null and void and must be reinstated after the divorce if that's the desire of the individual. And so if that case were to take place in a state that has a law like that, mom would not have won. The children would have won, and so forth. So be very careful make sure that you don't think that writing a will is the end all of your estate planning. You need to get your titling right. You need to get your beneficiaries right. And it all needs to line up with what you're intending in your total estate plan. And that's where your advisor is supposed to come in. Somebody who understands these principles, not just a lawyer, but the two working in conjunction together. It is critical, or your estate plan is going to be wrong. Number two, we're at the big one. This is a big one. Okay, I get this. I do a radio show. People call in, and just had it this week. I probably get this thrown at me at least once a week. Oh, if I give them more than 10,000 or 15,000, there's a boogeyman that's hiding behind a bush that's going to get me and get them, and we're all going to have problems, and we're all going to jail or something. So let's go to the truth. The truth is gifts do not impact income taxes. Gifts do not impact income taxes. You know, the tax return that you file every year, your 1040. I make a gift to you of $1 million. It does not affect my income tax return. It does not affect your income tax return. Gifts only influence an obscure tax called the estate and gift tax. This is a law that says you cannot in your lifetime transfer more than a certain amount of money via gift to a non-spouse individual. I can give Beverly $1 billion, no impact. If I give anyone other than Beverly more than $15,000 in any 1 year, I start to chip away at my lifetime amount that I can give to a non-spouse beneficiary. The current amount is $15,000 per year per person, and it means nothing for income taxes. Nothing. It doesn't affect my tax return. It doesn't affect their income tax return. It only affects this obscure tax that only the wealthiest of people need to worry about. And right now, you're allowed to give $11,580,000 to a non-spouse beneficiary, non-spouse beneficiaries as a whole. So it's $15,000 per year per person, but it's $11,580,000 as a whole to non-spouse beneficiaries that exceeded that $15,000 per year per person. All right. So you're with me now, right? So if I give $100,000 to Maddie here, who's sitting with me, and that's 85,000 over the 15, I have to go back to the government and say, you know, that 11,580,000 that that I have the right to give. Well, I gave Maddie 85,000. And so they'll say, okay, well, you're down 85,000. So now you're at $11,495,000 because I was 85 and I had 11,580. I'm at 11,495. Now that's the current law. The current law is going to change guaranteed in 2026 back to 6 million or so. There's an election going right now. Vice President Biden says if he wins, he intends to drop that already back down to 6 million or so immediately, not wait until 2026. So really rich people are giving lots of money away right now so that they lock in the 11,580,000. Most of us who don't have 11,580,000 at our fingertips that we can give away, it's irrelevant, right? You're not giving away huge amounts of money. There's no reason to. If your state's not going to exceed more than $3, $4, $5 million, and even if it does, you can. The point is that people whose estates are worth less than 5 million, you probably can give your children any amount of money you want. Nobody's ever going to ask you, what did you do and how did you do it? You know, so gifts don't affect income taxes. There's no big problem of giving more than 15,000 away, other than if during your lifetime and then the day you die, your total gifts that exceeded 15,000 to any one person per year. And remember, it's persons. So if I got 10 grandkids and I've got 5 children, that's $15,000 a year. So it's like 175,000 or so that I can give away every year without even affecting my 11,580,000. But if I wanted to give away 100,000 to each of my children, my total estate was 2 million, it's irrelevant. I'm never going to exceed even the $6 million amount. And it gets even more complicated than this, because if you're married, you both have 6 million, or you both have 11,580,000 right now. And you can transfer each spouse, you can use both of them. That's 12 million. So don't worry. If you give up more than 15,000 and you're not worth a lot of money, don't worry. Just give it away. Have a good time. Feel free. Be at peace. But if you're worth 5 million or more, make sure you talk to your advisor and say, you know, I'm planning to give a lot of money away. What should I do? And we're going to have to talk about strategies and filing a gift tax return, which isn't a big deal. It's just a piece of paper you got to file to the government. So when you die, they know, did you give away more than 11,580,000? And what do you have left to give away at the time of your passing? That's what this is about, not income taxes. All right? Be at peace with this one. Going into the number one. This was the most amazing revelation, because I'm an accountant. I've been doing tax returns since 1984. And it was only about 5 years ago that I finally realized, wow, this is a myth. And this is probably the greatest myth of them all. And here's what it was. So go to the reality. All right. So here's the thing. So I say to the client, I say, you know, well, if you make another $50,000, we'll be in the 24% tax bracket. And you see the client go, wait, oh, I don't want to get into the 24% tax bracket. And all of a sudden it dawned on me. It took me, what's that? I started to do tax returns in 1985. It's 2015 when I finally figured this out. That's what, 30 years? At 30 years, I didn't realize it, but that shows you the difference between professionals and non-professionals in an area. If a doctor said something to me about medical things, you know, I could get all concerned, or I could not be concerned at all. And he's not concerned, or he is concerned, totally opposite of me, because he understands it. And I didn't understand what he said, and I took it wrong, right? Well, this 30 years, I took this wrong. I didn't understand how people were perceiving tax brackets. And it's amazing how people think about tax brackets. Here it is. People think that if they go into the 24% tax bracket, bam, all my income gets taxed at 24%. You know, so if I make, look at the chart up here, this is for, I believe this is for single people, right? So this is a single person chart. So I'm single and I make $40,000, $125, I'm in the 12% tax bracket. People would think that if they made $40,126 and went into the 24% bracket, boom, all of a sudden, or 22% bracket, I'm sorry, 22%, boom, all their income became taxable at 22%, not at 12%. No, it's progressive. It's always progressive. Even if I'm Warren Buffett, even if I'm Bill Gates and I make $1 billion in 1 year, it's progressive. The first $9,800 is taxed at 10%. The next, whatever that is, about $30,000 is taxed at 12%. The next 40,000 or 45,000 is taxed at 22%. The next 80,000 is taxed at 24%. So I make 85,525. I'm in the 22% bracket. And I take out $10,000 more. All right. That next $10,000 is going to be taxed at 24%, not the rest of the 85,000. I paid $2,400 more on that. Now, there are reasons that I don't want to do that, but it's not the end of the world. What are people getting panicked when they go into a new tax bracket? And I was shocked at how many people believed that when you went into a new tax, I shouldn't, kind of make fun of this, because I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. I'm just saying that I'm embarrassed that I didn't figure this out years ago and been teaching you for years that the way tax brackets work is that you always get the progression. You always get the 10% bracket. You always get the 12%, the 22, the 24, whatever the brackets are. You always get each one of them. And when you go into the next bracket, it's just the next dollar. It's going to be taxed at that rate. It's not a terrible thing at all. It just needs to be planned around and thought about each and every time. But it is not a horrible thing. So if you have income of $98.76, how many dollars are taxed at 12%? One. The rest is taxed at 10%. That's the reality. And I hope that's a light bulb moment for you. And I hope I relieved you from worrying about tax brackets, because there's nothing wrong with going into the next tax bracket. It's just the next dollar is going to be taxed at that. And there are planning strategies that you want to think about. All right. We got through them all. Mm-hmm. So we got, the long-term care is a significant risk. You just have to have a strategy. Accidental death and dismemberment insurance is cheap for a reason. It's probably not worth worrying about or getting unless you have morbid form of gambling. My employer subsidizes my group life, making it cost effective. Nothing could be further from the truth. You're subsidizing unhealthy people in the company if you're buying group life. It's the worst type of insurance to carry for risk management purposes. My will determines where my assets go. No, your titling and beneficiary determine that first, and then your will picks up everything that's left over, if there's anything left over. That's why when the first spouse dies, most people don't even ever probate a will, because everything went by titling or beneficiary designation. Gifts to my children cause taxable income? No, gifts do not cause income tax issues. Hear me. Gifts do not cause income tax issues. Gifts only affect this obscure thing called the estate and gift tax for people who are very wealthy. The government has decided in their infinite wisdom that you shouldn't be able to give that much money away, which to them is $6 or $11 million, to your family. If you do, you're going to pay them 40% or more in estate and gift taxes. But if your estate's never going to be worth more than $5 million or so, it's probably something you never have to worry about. And if you go into another tax bracket, it's going to cause all this landslide of taxation. And I don't want to go into the next tax bracket. No, it's just the next dollar. Don't worry about it. Be at peace with that. And now we're going to talk about our next seminar coming up. That's
it's November 20th.
November 20th. And it's about, the election. Gosh, this is another question we're getting. I seem like my advisors and I are addressing this question on a regular basis. If the election and we're all going to be impoverished and the world's coming to an end, whether this one wins or this one wins, depending on where you are on the political spectrum, it's like there's an incredible danger and evil if this one wins, and there's incredible danger and evil if this one wins. Nothing could be further from the truth, but when we know November 20th, we'll know. You say, well, what if we don't know? Then we really will have a problem. Well, I think we'll know. It's just my own personal opinion. We'll see. I'll be egg on my face if I'm doing this seminar if we don't know on November 20th, I'm going to let Maddie do the seminar. and and I'll be in Cleveland or something, so that you don't throw eggs and tomatoes at me, because I said we'll know the outcome by then. But if you want to sign up for it, just go to our events section and sign up for that. We'd love to have you there. And they'll always be taped and rebroadcast, just like this one is. If you like this seminar or any of them, hopefully you'll forward it out to friends and family and say, this is the kind of company you want to work with, because they're far more than just investing money. They really educate and teach about personal finances to help me be the best I can be in my personal finance. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Are we doing questions or not?
We can. There's a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen if anybody wants to put in some questions. We'll leave it open for a couple minutes. But if not,
I think I did such a thorough job. There's just not a chance that anybody has any questions. They're going to just sit back and say, man, that was just incredibly thorough. And there's no reason to ask any questions right now. But I shouldn't do that, put that pressure on anyone. If they want to ask a question, feel free. If not, that's fine.
doesn't look like we're getting any, so you did a great job.
You want to do the Jeopardy? How about regular estate taxes? Well, what are regular estate taxes? You're going to have to answer that for me first, because most individuals, if you're not worth $5 million or more, see, now they may be, their question is, how about regular estate taxes? They may be misinterpreting that with state, not a state, estate. Estate is when you die. Most states don't have an estate or inheritance tax anymore. Maryland has both, of course, because there's never a tax that Maryland's seen that they didn't like. But estate taxes, unless you're worth 5 million or more, most people are never going to ever even think about that or ever hear about it. But if you're confusing estate with state, like the state of Maryland or the state of Virginia, then that's a totally different thing. And, it's income taxes, state income taxes again. And it has nothing to do with gifts and things of that sort. What was that? 5 million or more doesn't apply here. So yeah, there's, a lot of our clients are, that's why most of them, when they call and say, hey, I want to do this, but I'm afraid that I'm going to cause an income tax issue with my kids because I want to give more than 15,000. There's no problem with that. If you're not worth 5 million or more, and if you're even curious, just call. And you're really just asking about the gift and estate taxes. And that's really only is going to be a problem for people worth 5 million. And I'm saying 5 million, but really the way with the spouses, if you're married, it's more like 10 million. If you're single, then let's call it 5 million. All right. Anybody else any more? If not, we appreciate your time. This is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.